Welcome to the Wayfaring Panda. I'm Annette. Today I'm making 4 pet sympathy cards because unfortunately my sister had several co-workers lose some pets recently. But you can use the techniques I'm using for if you need them now, or it's also a good thing to have in the future to have cards for different occasions, whether it's birthday cards, pet sympathy cards, hopefully pet birthday cards maybe, or getting a new pet type card, and have those on file for whenever you do need one of these types of cards. So I'm going to be using this Dare to Be Artsy stamp set, and it's called Pet Sympathy. And the sentiment that my sister picked out was, "They may be gone from us, but treasured friends are never forgotten." And I'm also using the paw for the inside, because I always like to add a little bit of embellishment to the inside of the card. I'm using Tim Holtz Stamp Platform to help me do my stamping. And these things really come in handy for whenever you're doing stamping, so you can stamp it multiple times to get a crisp image. And also it's great for doing multiple cards that are similar, so that you could just put your stamps on there and then just keep stamping the same image over and over. Now my first one, I had to reposition the words because it looked like it was just a little bit crooked, and on this platform there are lines to help you with that. Now this platform is no longer available in the United States. You might be able to get it outside of the United States, but there are a lot of other companies that have something similar. Well, one thing with doing multiple cards is that you don't always want all of your cards to look exactly alike, and you might feel that you're not personalizing them. So there's a way that you can go around that. I'm going to be giving you some tips to vary your cards. So with this step, I did 2 of the cards with black ink, and then 2 of the cards I'm doing with Stampin' Up! Chocolate Chip ink. Now this is a very old Stampin' Up! Stamp pad, and I believe that the newer ones are made differently. So this particular stamp pad is hard to stamp with because the lid doesn't come off, but I make do with what I have. Now on one of the cards, I must have moved the paper when I double stamped it, and so the image was kind of blurred, so I did go ahead and do another card off screen. For the front of my card, I'm going to be using these stamps from Mama Elephant, and it's called Playful Pups. These I bought a long time ago, so I don't know if they're still out there, but you can use whatever dog stamps you have for this type of card, or whatever goes with the theme that you're using. So for my card design, I'm just using this kind of small square that I cut out with Lawn Fawn, and it's the Lawn Fawn stitched square dies that I use, but you could cut it out just as a square and not use a die if you don't have those. Now the way I'm varying it here is my first dog is going to be the one that looks kind of like a Boston Terrier or a French Bulldog. My sister said that one of the dogs that someone lost looked like a pit bull, but it reminded her of a Boston Terrier, so it was black and white like that. So I'm going to use this one as one of the black cards that I stamped. So this is one way you can vary by just changing one of the stamped images. So the other 3 cards I'm going to use the same one that kind of looks like a golden retriever or maybe a Labrador, and I'm using the ball for all of them. I'm coloring my images with Copic Markers, and I put the cap on the glass mat for each color that I do, so you can see which colors I'm using. Now the way I'm saving time is that the card design incorporates this square where I did just a couple stamped images, so they won't take too long to color. My first 2 dogs, I'm going to be using warm gray Copics to color, so that they'll go with the 2 cards that I stamped in black. And then my other 2 dogs, I'm going to be using earth tones, which are shades of brown, and I'm going to put those with the cards that I stamped in brown. Now this card design I'm doing will save us some time because I cut out a square for my stamped images. This way we don't have to die cut individual images. The other way I'm going to save time is that I'm not using a whole lot of different colors on each one. So my first 2 that I'm focusing on black, my accent color is this blue color that will go with the blue paper that I'm going to put on the card. so it'll coordinate but also make some of my cards a little bit different. Now my brown dogs, I'm using kind of a darker red in order to use that for my accents. So the little images like the ball and the hearts are very small and the bandanas. So I really didn't do any shading. I just used one color for that. Now for the dogs, I usually use 3 different shades, and that's what I did here. And I start with my darker color and go to lighter. Some people prefer to do it the other way. And generally I'll put one of my darker colors towards the bottom because obviously the sun would be shining brighter on the top of the dog. But also I like to do their faces a little bit lighter so that you don't lose like the eyes and facial expressions that you might lose if you do use darker colors on their faces. Now, for some reason during the filming of this, I kept getting a cramp in my hand, so there's a few times where I stopped, so I just want to apologize for that. I don't know if I've been using my hand too much a certain way. Probably the other day I was doing a lot of sewing, some hand stitching to make some puppets for school, so maybe that's why. If you're new to Copic coloring or any other type of alcohol markers, most of us can't go and buy a whole bunch of markers at once. I've just been buying a few at a time. And so what I would do is start with an accent color, whatever color you think you would use the most. So we could have just used a blue marker or a red marker for all the dogs, and then just use 3, whether it be gray or browns. And then just on all the dogs the same shades of brown or same shades of gray, whatever that you think you will use the most. I'm going to be making some borders for my cards, and I'm using the Creative Memories original border maker system, and you just put in the cartridge for whichever border you want to cut. So I'm starting with the cable weave chain, and that one will allow me to weave a ribbon through it, or you could use it just as it is. And I'm going to use this strip of red cardstock, and it's kind of a cranberry color, so it'll coordinate with the pattern paper that I'm going to be using. So first of all, you just open up the little tray, so that helps you line up your paper, and then you fold over the blue part to hold the paper in place. Then I just put in the cartridge, and you just move the cartridge over each time. There's little slots where it goes into place, and that's how you'll know where to punch. I'm doing the same thing again with my Picket fence cartridge, and this will also allow me to use a ribbon, but it has a wider opening, so I can use a wider ribbon on that. And I'm going to use a paper that's kind of a dark teal blue color. I cut my borders off screen, and I just cut them to 4 1/4 wide, and the blue ones I've trimmed off the top of the paper since I really just wanted the border. Now the blue ones have a wider opening, so I'm going to use a wider ribbon for that, and I'm using these ones that have the black bones on them, and I'll use that with my cards that I'm using the black. When you're mass producing cards, you want to use cards that have a simpler design so that you, of course, can make more in a shorter amount of time. And using this border maker system and the ribbon allows me to decorate the cards a little bit more and make it a little bit more fancy, but still be pretty quick to make. For the red border, I'm threading through some brown Grosgrain ribbon that has little paw prints on it. Using my border punches and doing 2 different ribbons and changing up the color of the cardstock allow me to add some variations in the cards without adding really any extra time to making the cards. Finally, I'm going to glue all my elements onto the top of my card, and I'm just verifying that I had the one with the brown stitching to go with my brown elements that I'm using. Now the paper I'm using came from my stash, and it's old, so I don't think it's out there anymore. Both of these papers were from Photoplay, and the plaid is called Fetch, and the flowered one came from a pet collection. I didn't buy them as a collection, I just bought papers separate. And this was called Catnip, Think to Remember. It's also from Photoplay. using pattern paper is a great way to do mass production of cards because it really dresses up your card really fast. And you can find so many different colors and patterns out there that it can go with whatever kind of card that you want to make. When I was looking for my pattern papers, I was looking to make sure they coordinated well with the colors, but also that the weight of the papers, as far as like, don't use two floral mixes that are like small print like the one I have. So you want them to stand out and complement each other. So when I also put on my square of coloring just to make sure which one would my dogs stand up against. So they looked better on the plaid, so I'm putting that on top and putting the flower on the bottom. For extra embellishment, I'm using my Glossy Accents to glue on the Love Heart Sparkletz from Buttons, Galore, and More, and I decided to add 2 red and 1 clear heart to each of the colored images, and the corner where there's kind of empty. So that's a good way to decorate up your card without having to do a lot of coloring. I'll put a list of all the products that I'm using in the description below. Some of these will be affiliate links. They don't cost you anything extra to use, but I do get a small commission from any sales that those links generate, and that helps support my channel. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like, and if you're not already a subscriber, I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe to my channel. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.